welcome back to Breaking Point, and now in our final episode, we're going to zoom out and answer the question, what does superstition mean across different players, different cultures, and different stress levels? And more importantly, where do these rituals stem from, and why or does that really matter? To start this discussion, we're going to look at Dr. Ofori's work. Through a 5-layer study, he showed that superstitions aren't inherently good or bad. It just depends on their origins. And his most important discovery was that rituals that stem from personal, internal motivation are psychologically beneficial, but rituals adopted from team pressure or conformity, those can kind of backfire on us. But why? Because when athletes mimic rituals just to fit in, they experience something called cognitive dissonance, a kind of mental tug-of-war between who you really are and who you feel the pressure to be. This disconnect can lead to anxiety, loss of confidence, and ultimately poor performance. But when a ritual is authentic, like as we can assume Nadal's is, it serves as an emotional anchor, providing control and mental stability that will ultimately lead to a more successful performance in your given sport. Ofori's research also looks at cultural influences. He does this through British student athletes who he saw were more likely to believe in superstitions than Ghanaian athletes who actually were more likely to perform them. This tells us that belief and behavior don't always align, and that culture and your environment can shape you in different ways. All of this supports a bigger takeaway. The effectiveness of superstition isn't about whether it's rational or we can understand why a player does so. It's about whether it's personal and whether it brings control to one's chaotic and high-stakes setting. This brings us to a framework that you can potentially use if you are a high-performing athlete, a student, or just someone looking to better deal with stress. To do this, if we place on a spectrum superstition, on one hand we can see the destructive reactions of racket smashing, anger, emotional spirals, which are unbeneficial to our lives. On the other hand, we have rituals that are grounded in personal habits, which can ultimately reduce fear and increase confidence. So the ultimate takeaway is that the key isn't to eliminate superstitions, but to understand where it's coming from and what it's doing for you and yourself. So if you're looking to build habits, just really be mindful of where your habits are stemming from and if those are positive or negative origins. In the end, it's not whether about you tie your shoe in the same way or you take the same sip of water every day, but it's whether those actions are your own and if those have stemmed from a good place and not causing you any cognitive dissonance that will ultimately add to your stress and lead to negative performance. So much for watching the podcast, and I hope you enjoyed and stay for the next series.